Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Overfilled, the podcast. I'm Dr. Brooke Messer, and I'm joined by my good friend and mentor, Dr. Jason Jedlicka. Usually, Dr. Jamie Kuzner is with us as well, but she is busy overfilling the lives of her patients, and we're hopefully going to see her in a little bit. So in our podcast, we like to talk about contact lenses. We like to talk about industry involvement and what brings us joy in our day-to-day career. And so good to see you again, Jason.
You too.
Can you tell us about your big week and what's overfilling you?
I can, yeah. So we're going to not talk about contact lenses for once, and I'm going to talk about what overfilled me this week was becoming a grandfather for the first time. So that was very cool.
Yeah.
My oldest son and his daughter had a little boy on Sunday night, and all is well.
Yeah.
Got to see him yesterday, Sunday, Monday. Day is today, Wednesday. Got to see him on Monday for a few hours, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be great. But everybody's doing well, so
Yeah.
very exciting.
Kim is settling into the grandmother role just perfectly.
Oh yeah. In fact, she's probably going up there tonight because they're coming home from the hospital and they're like,
Yeah.
we can use some help with the dog and a few other things
Getting
while we're settling in. So she'll probably buzz up there tonight.
Yeah, and like from when I had my kids in the hospital and having my parents come to the hospital for the first time, it's just like knowing that forever life has changed in the relationship of like your parents to your kids, you and your parents. It is just such a great thing, and there is like nothing better than seeing my parents with my kids. That it's just overfilling to the max.
There you go.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to swing it back to contacts. Last week, Friday, I got to sit and visit with Vance Thompson himself. So I work at Vance Thompson Vision in Fargo. And Vance and I recorded a little podcast that Vance Thompson Vision does on myopia. And Vance and I just don't get a lot of time to chat together. And the podcast went really well. The conversation was super natural. And it's neat to have someone in ophthalmology who's literally like at the top of ophthalmology coming back and saying like, yes, what you're doing in myopia is worth it. And so kind of validating all those efforts that we're putting into the kids and, fitting lenses well, educating parents, building awareness in the community, that it's worth it. And so that was just kind of a nice experience to reconnect with him and have a really great podcast. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
he's a great guy and definitely one of the nicest and genuinely skilled ophthalmologists I've ever known.
And you know what? He was shouting out myopia studies, care study, statistics, just like that. He was all over it. So I was really impressed.
Yeah, very cool.
I think we have something to share for our podcast today that has overfilled us both, not only today, but through our careers. And that's our special guest.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago on our podcast, we gave you guys the call to action to find out who is Bill Shelly. Unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of responses to that call to action. So what are we supposed to do? So we're gonna have to bring the man to you rather than you go figuring it out yourself. So we have the great pleasure of having our good friend Bill Shelly here today, and Bill is going to talk about the importance of industry relations, which is something we talk about a lot for new fitters and new people in this field. How important it is to have that relationship with your labs and the companies you're going to work with. So Bill will talk about that. But Bill, gosh, let's bring him on here. You ready to come on with us, Bill?
There he is.
Good afternoon.
So as mentioned, Bill is a veteran of the industry. For how many years did you work in the contact lens industry, Bill?
42.
42 years. That could be a record. Bill is a golf addict, and we were just celebrating his 1-year anniversary of his hole-in-one.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's an Eagles fan. I see you took your hat off. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I can always put it back on.
Yeah, okay. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah. So, man, we have a lot we could talk about, and I don't want to get too much into personal stories.
Yeah.
But we always recollect this dinner we had. How many years ago was that? Was that like 2011, maybe?
It would have been 2011.
2011. Yeah, that was it.
At Chow Bella in Minnetonka, I believe.
We ate dinner outside on a table, right, with an umbrella.
Yep.
Chow Bella in Bloomington.
Yeah. Okay. Bloomington. Yeah. And so, the point there, I guess, is just that was Brooke, maybe for you, that was like your introduction into the importance of industry.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because we sat down, had dinner, and I just remember at the end being like, that was just the most amazing time. Bill is such a wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He knows everybody and has all these connections and has all these relationships. And how cool is that? But that is exactly why we as specialty fitters need to have those relationships. And so that was a big moment for both of us, really, because that kind of opened the door to Zen Lens in a lot of ways, which started the development of that the following year. So anyway,
yeah, it was a very impressionable meeting for me too. And, kind of hearing you guys talk about names in the industry that I hadn't heard before. And some I had, because I had learned some through my contact lens residency, but sort of bringing to life how important it is to connect with people like you, Bill, and understanding that, mentors and people helping make moves in your career kind of come from all avenues within the industry. It's not just, your residency advisor or another optometrist, and that, just like how Jamie shared, people that impacted in her career too with Tom, and how supportive he was in her making her moves in her career. And Bill, you're definitely one of those people for me, in that it, whenever something came up or an opportunity or something new in the industry, it was really neat to have like a quick, pull me to the side, ask a few questions. I'm going to introduce you to this guy, so be ready to talk about this. And those are huge moments for young people in their careers. And well, I mean, at any point in your career when you can meet somebody new that can potentially help you study something new, learn a new part of contact lens fitting, or even, get on the podium to talk about something new. So those are just for people who want to be involved. I just can't stress enough how valuable people like you are on our careers.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about the contact lens industry, I always thought it was not only a great industry, but it was an industry that was helping a lot of people. And it required a lot of work between interdisciplinary areas of the industry. And that would be people who designed the lenses. And when I first got into the business, it was soft lenses. It was a company by the name of Vico Optics, which I don't think you were around for this product. Jason may remember. It was called
Aquaflex. Not really. No, not even me.
It was called Aquaflex. And at that time, I believe there were 34, 35 different soft lenses out there, with Bosch Alom's being an industry leader, and followed up by Hydrocurve, and then it was Aquaflex. And it was sold on quality. It wasn't a price-related issue. We were always more expensive. But that got us the mindset into, you need to deal with quality. And you're not going to deal with price. If you deal with quality, you're going to have a long sustained business. And it appealed to the practitioners who were interested in that. And they were interested in doing what was right for their patients. And I was a rep for them for 6 years. Then I became a district manager, a regional manager. And we tried to implement that all throughout our career. And the neat thing about it was, we probably had the highest manufacturing specs in the business at the time. And so you would go into someone's office, either an experienced fitter or a new fitter, but you had the confidence that you would be able to present to them a product that would provide an out for them for many difficult patients. And a lot of times we weren't the number one fit lens in a practice, but we were the most reliable. And we built a lot of business on that. And we the company eventually wound up getting sold to Cooper. And at that time, shortly after that, I became a manager out in California, in the western part, lived outside of San Francisco. And a company by the name of Concise, which is now ABB, was a big distributor of ours. And they had a fellow by the name of Carl Moore. And he worked very closely with Bob Mandel. And I walked in one day, and of course, Dr. Mandel was huge at Berkeley and a contact lens leader. And Carl sat me down and he said, I want to tell you, the fellow who invented Aquaflex was a guy by the name of Stan Gordon. And he was one of the most underrated innovators in the business. And it just impressed upon me the need to, that quality was a key point of producing a product, selling a product, marketing a product, but also listening to people like Dr. Mandel and Carl, and they were instrumental and they were mentors to me, and I was always very grateful to them. And I had some very great people I worked with at Aquaflex and in Cooper over the years. In fact, when I was quick aside, when the guy who hired me at Aquaflex, this guy by the name of Greg DeCino, he said to me, because they had a hard time in Philadelphia, which is where I was working. And he said, I'm going to hire you and I'm going to have to fire you in 6 months because you're not going to make it here. 2.5 years later, when we got bought by Cooper, I think I had the second largest territory in the company. So, but it became part of that quality selling. But you had to learn your material. You had to understand what was going on. And we were well trained. A guy by the name of Barry Kissick was the optometrist at the time, and he trained us quite diligently on the eye. He accused us of being minor ODs, which of course was untrue, but we knew a lot about the cornea.
I think you brought up two good points there, is that, again, like quality and predictability, reliable, that's so important in the industry, especially, that's what makes it valuable, when you can know when you make a change, it's going to be predictable on the next orders for patient outcomes. That's super valuable. And number two, Bill, you might know more names than anybody I've ever met. And so that is
maybe to some people's regret.
Such an impressive skill. I think some of us are like, God, I know the face. I even, know the K's of this patient's cornea, but I can't remember their name, like when I see them on my schedule or things like that. But what a skill, just remembering all those names.
Yeah. And now I know why you ended up at Alden, because Charlie's kind of a quality guy too.
Yep. Definitely.
And it was a good fit for you being there. And so speaking of that, you obviously spent the last several years of your career more in specialty lenses than in soft lenses. How did that whole transition take place?
Well, I was at Paragon for 6 years, and that probably was the point where I learned the most about contact lenses. Selling fluoroperm, paraperm, we had to get tight with the labs, and there was a crusty old rascal by the name of Dwayne Tracy, who was a good friend of Ed Bennett's, and helped Ed get the GPLI position that he now continues to be involved. He really knew his stuff, and they taught me a lot about contact lenses. And then from there, we met some people up in Canada, and we came out with the Cooper Vision multifocal XR program. That was all because I was in charge of some of that stuff. So when Cooper brought in new management, Tom Schoen had gone away, and he and I had worked closely together on a lot of those projects. Then he joined up with Charlie, and he joined up with Charlie because the guy Leslie Donahue, who actually was one of the developers of the Cooper Vision multifocal design, suggested to Charlie that he hook up with Tom, or vice versa. I'm not quite familiar. So when we hooked up with Alden, it was really a small company. It wasn't even doing $1 million worth of sales. And so we all had some dough in the game. So we worked real hard to come up with some ideas, and they were about to present, ready to go to close to go into market with Novacone, which was a soft lens.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry Farkas was very influential in helping that get off the ground. And Scott Edmonds over at Will's Eye was influential in getting that off the ground. But it was becoming very clear that we were going to be behind the curve if we didn't come up with a sclera lens. And then we had that dinner out in Minnesota. And then we bumped into Jason, Tom and I, at a Vision Expo on the floor, and we made an arrangement to have a meeting with this at the CLSA, which was going to be about 2 weeks later.
Santa Fe.
In
Albuquerque.
Mexico, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we sat around the table. Brooke, were you lecturing then? We might have skipped out on you or not. I'm not sure.
No, I don't know if I was lecturing, but I watched Jason draw the fit set on a napkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we came up with the concept of Zen Lens at the time. And Jason had this frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I very clearly, I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but one of the frustrations that he had is if he changed one parameter, all the other different parameters would change. And so he never really knew what he wanted. So he wanted to have something that would be predictable and reliable. And that's how the smart curve was developed. And I think Charlie told me he misunderstood something that Jason told him. And he did. Charlie's a math whiz. I mean, he really is a math whiz. And he did this calculation. He sent the lens to Jason, and Jason called him up and goes, "What did you do?" Charlie goes, "I made what you wanted me to make." And that was introduction or the inauguration of the smart curve, which set Zen Lens apart.
It was like by accident or something, wasn't it? That it kind of worked out that way with the smart
As I understand it, Jason made a request to Charlie. He might not have heard him clearly, but he was able to come up with what Jason wanted. To Jason's surprise, it worked. Is that inaccurate?
Something like
possible, yes. Mm-hmm.
You don't remember?
No, I think I do. Yeah, it was on the 17 millimeter design and the limbal clearance, and we wanted to adjust that, but I didn't want to change the sag in this. So he figured out a way to make that smart curve give me more limbal clearance, but didn't change anything else about it.
Yeah. And that was beginning of Zen Lens. And then we had a meeting. We had a clinical meeting at the Academy, didn't we, when it was in New Orleans?
It's possible, yeah. We had a trivia night at the Academy in New Orleans. I remember that for sure.
That was
Brooke put that on.
I hosted the trivia. That was a blast. That was for the residents.
One of the
that
best
year.
nights ever, for sure.
Yeah, and there was a what do you call it? Like a stealthy little fourth year that snuck into that dinner that night by the name of Amy Kuzner.
Amy Kuzner.
That was one of the best nights I ever had at the Academy, and
it was really fun.
It was.
I've been to a lot of Academy meetings, but that was a hoot. Unfortunately, when Alden went over to Bosch Alone, they would not let that kind of activity go forward. So.
Well, just to let you know, we are hosting some resident trivia at ICSC next week.
That's great.
So we're slowly kind of changing the tides there, but I think the just your stories on like the how it came along, and again, like the Zen Lens wouldn't have come to be without the teamwork between you and Charlie and Jason, and then I call myself the JV team to support Jason.
The microvolt, right?
So I was involved there, but I think the other thing that's worth mentioning too is could you guys tell us a little bit about, I think Charlie is kind of just this like name that's been mentioned a few times on our podcast. And can we talk a little bit about what Charlie does? And then I think, Bill, we should talk about, when you see young residents, or young fitters, or, you know, that maybe are looking to move in the industry, like what you're looking for and how you approach them to help. So if you want to ponder over that. But first, let's talk a little bit about what Charlie does in the industry.
Well, Charlie was the owner of Alden. His dad started Alden, and then Charlie took it over. And Charlie ran the company and the lab and everything. And Charlie's a math whiz, like Bill already said. And so Charlie's the guy that when I have an idea for a lens and describe it to him, he goes to his spreadsheets and makes it happen, and then knows how to configure the lathe to cut it that way too. So just the you know, like everything in life that's successful, there's almost a perfect storm that has to happen, right? And so you talk about, you know, well, so and so must be really great at what they do because look how successful. It's like, yeah, they had a little part of it, but there was a lot of other people involved. And so Charlie Creighton is the other guy who was even, I mean, for all the ideas of what a scleral could be or should be, none of it would have happened if Charlie didn't know how to do it. So he's really the one who made it work. And then of course, ended up selling Alden to Bausch & Lomb.
Yeah.
Charlie's one of those guys that, if you don't know who he is, may be perceived to be an overnight success, but it took him 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in a lot of GP labs in the country, just about every one. And Charlie was 25 years ahead of everybody else. The way he ran a lab, the way he maintained the quality of it, the automation. He was probably one of 2 or 3 people in the world, if not number one, as being the foremost expert in a manufacturing software technology called focal points. Mm-hmm. In fact, that Bausch used to try to bring him in, and he was training those folks on focal points. And, you know, there's this big multi-billion-dollar company. You know, some of those folks, I think, might have had their nose put out of joint a little bit because here's this guy coming in, you know, we just bought this company. What does he know? And he was a lot better than those guys ever thought of being.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah, so now he has a consulting company where he basically goes in, and every other lab out there now wants Charlie to come in and help them become more efficient and more streamlined in their production. So that's a testament to what he did with Alden, and now that he's getting paid by other labs to come in and improve their operations. So
if you ever see him at a meeting, he's usually walking around with a laptop.
Yeah.
Working on focal points.
You couldn't find a nicer guy.
That's how you can find Charlie. Yeah, definitely.
And you couldn't find a nicer guy. And we also have to tip our hat a little bit to Tom Schoen because his marketing expertise was also helpful. I mean, there were a lot of people who thought Alden was a lot bigger than it was because of Tom's ability to work his marketing magic.
Yeah. And that was the perfect storm discussion or mention is definitely the way that the Zen lens went together with your design and teaming up with Charlie and then you, Bill, and Tom and everything. Just, it was fun to be, you know, on the immediate peripheral ring of the magic. So just, we can really look back on those times, that 2015 to 2018 or so, with just, you know, a lot of fondness on, you know, what a ride that was, that, you know, landed with Packers Bills in Buffalo.
I was just going to mention, I came across that picture. I have one of those spinning computer photo things.
Yeah.
And that picture popped up last night, and I just had a biggest smile when I saw that.
That was a good time.
That was a fun time. We did a workshop over at Erie the day before, right?
Yes.
Yep, we did.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and again talk about, you know, Bill. So you're at a meeting, you're at the booth, you're connecting with people, and you meet a young doc that's, you know, impressive. Have a good conversation. You know, what do you see in these people that you're like, hey, this person belongs on a podium, or this person belongs, you know, as a KOL, they can make a difference in the future. You know, what do you see in those people, and what do you do for them?
You have to see the passion, you know, and the passion to learn, because if they're going to be involved in specialty lenses, it's not like situations that would frustrate me with some practitioners, particularly who had been in practice for a while. They thought fitting a scleral would be a wham bam type situation. They didn't want to take the time to learn how to fit it. And they always used to be of concern to me, because if they didn't take the time to learn how to fit it correctly, you don't know what could happen in it. It might not be a good situation. And you always want to make sure that the patient is well treated. So you would always look for passion. You'd always look for people who would ask good questions. And, one of the things that you have to be willing to share is the fact that you may not be able to satisfy every request they make. So it's always good to know what your competitors are doing, because there could be somebody that could fulfill a need that, for example, SedLens couldn't do at the time, which would be maybe a very small scleral or very big scleral, So you may want to take a shot asking those people, having the confidence that your company would be able to maintain the business. But, there are times you're not going to be able to help everybody out. Then there's also how they comport themselves. Some people you just know that they're going to be, they walk in the room like the two of you and Jamie, and that they're going to be game changers. And that makes a big deal. And it's also important to hook them up with other key people within the industry, whether they be ophthalmologists, optometrists, or even people that are highly regarded in the CLSA. I had a lot of respect for people that were fellows in the CLSA, whether they be Craig Norman. Well, I always say that with a little bit of regret because he might hear it. But Michael Ward, Mark Andre, Pat Caroline, those were the people that Maggie Walsh, Gary, those are the folks that really knew their stuff. Buddy Russell, for example. I mean, I don't think if I had a child who was in need of some expert care, hi Jamie, whether that Buddy Russell would be as good as anybody. Michael down in Atlanta, those folks all had a passion. They wanted to do what was right.
Yeah.
So it was always, I had a lot of respect for those people.
I think that the CLSA is awesome for, optometry, contact lens technicians, and NCLE providers. Like those are some of my favorite memories, and I think core moments in my career too. And that, the CLSA wasn't necessarily, it was initially for contact lens technicians, right? And then it kind of grew into optometry. Is that the way it goes? But man, those are,
they had the 3 O's.
Buddy and Mark and those people just.
You had the 3 O's. You had the ophthalmology, optometry, and the opticians.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what stands out to me is we all recognize that it's as much about who you know as what you know. And if you don't know somebody that you want to know, Bill knows them. Right? Yeah. So it's always be like, hey, who do I know that knows such and such where somewhere else that I don't know? It's like, oh, I'll ask Bill.
I'll ask Bill. Yeah.
So it's like you talk about why have industry relationships. It's because your industry partners are the connections that you don't have. They're the ones who can make the connection when you want to get connected to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's, as you can hear by listening to Bill throwing names around, if there was ever anybody that you wanted or needed to communicate with because you had an idea or you wanted to collaborate or just you wanted their wisdom, hey, Bill, can you connect me with such and such? And that's the value of your industry partner, is the knowledge they have of others in the industry and that building that bridge to other folks. So
the other thing I would throw in there would be, everybody goes through a bad patch every now and then, whether it be a practitioner, they have a challenging patient, or a company comes out with a challenging situation. Maybe they've done, I remember at Cooper, we did a software change that almost killed us. I mean, it was we were working 85, 90 hours a week trying to get through it. And it was important when I remember Rob Davis calling me up in Chicago saying, hey, you know, what's going on? And you just tell them the truth. And if you tell them the truth, that goes a long way. It maintains credibility. 2, it lets them know what's going on. And 3, you don't have to remember that much. You know, if people are trying to fib their way out of it, that's a lot of people you could be talking to, and you could get your stories confused, and then you're in trouble because of credibility issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not the smartest guy in the world, as Jason will attest. So I always try to tell them the truth. So
Pleasure.
Those are all important things.
Yeah. I think in the industry, like you said, the credibility and the, spending time with good people is just really important. And I was wondering if you thought this week's call to action would be a good one on, just examples of what listeners are looking for in the industry. We would do our best to connect to anybody with anyone that they wanted to connect with. But I think it'd be interesting to know what people want out there. What do young fitters want, and what do they, where do they want to take their careers? Do they want to connect with people where they can write? Do they want to connect with people where they can fit new lenses, or maybe get on a panel of some kind? Or maybe there's just somebody they want to meet, and we can do our best. Again, we may be, depending, I know we get thousands of requests each week, so it's a lot to attend to. But what are you seeking in your career? And, maybe Bill can help us make a move.
Yeah, I mean, we're all about, that's the purpose of Overfilled, right? Other than to share what overfills us, is to bring more people into the fold and help others to have the same overfilled experience that we have. And so if there's something that someone you want to meet, something you want to do, whatever, record it.
Yeah.
Send us a video of you telling us what you are seeking for your career, especially as you get started in specialty lenses, and let's see what we can do.
And I'll just add too, because I'm on the call now. And you have to say what you want, right? You have to voice that. So I've had a lot of young doctors come up and say, I want to work in industry. It's like, great. Who have you told?
Yeah.
Well, nobody, right? I don't think the industry partners are just going to look at who's sitting in the CE and go up to you and say, hey, do you want to lecture?
Yeah.
You have to voice that. I remember one of Jason's former residents was telling me, like, gosh, I'd really love to speak for Zenlens. And I'm like, well, have you told Jason? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, like, he is the person to tell. Like, why are you telling me? And then we make it happen. But if you kind of just sit back, opportunities will pass you by. So you really have to ask for them and keep asking over and over until you finally get it.
If you ask me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to talk to the person who's the market rep for the area of the country you're in, like Bill would have been when you were there, and say, Bill was the head of the whole country, and you had your regional reps underneath you. But I would just reach out to the rep and say, hey, there's somebody in your area that's really passionate about being involved, and connect those two. So again, it's about making connections to people that can connect you. It's what all this whole thing of 6 degrees of separation. I think in the contact lens industry, it could really be like 1 degree of separation. As long as you know one person, they can connect you with the other person. So
yeah, it's just a really great part of the industry to be in, for sure.
The one thing I would add to that, Jamie, is 2 parts. One, go to as many meetings as you can. If you're still in school, go to as many workshops as you can. Let it be known that you've attended them, but also come equipped to talk about why you're prepared to speak for a company. I got a ton of calls. Yeah, I want to talk to you. And the question I would ask, if I didn't know them, would be, what are you bringing to the table? You need to have that answer in your back pocket so that you can say that, well, this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing. And so you'd be surprised how many requests you get of that nature. So you You got to put yourself above everybody else to get people to pay attention to what you want to accomplish.
Because that shows that you've thought about it.
Yeah.
You know, and you can find your values and plug them in. So
the other thing I would say to you as a cautionary note, if you want to speak for companies. For example, you're going to speak on a specialty lenses. You may want to talk on behalf of 1 or 2, not on 15, because you dilute your credibility when that happens. So
I could not agree more. Could not agree more with you, Bill.
Yeah,
you got to be passionate about, and you got to believe in the products you're speaking in. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you start speaking about 14, 15 different companies, you're going to lose your credibility.
So, Jamie, what overfilled you this week?
Oh, it's been a busy week. I was just kind of thinking, it's so awesome that most of my practice is just these amazing scleral lens patients. That's why I was late today, is because I was taking care of my patients, and my one before lunch drove 50 miles to see me. So I wasn't going to, rush her through to hang out with you guys. I know how to, but, I love being able to spend time with them. And it's just a general overfilled. How cool is it that my practice, I get to see, 7, 8, 9 scleral lens patients a day. And I love it. So I'm very happy just to see my people and take care of them.
Just to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Bill. Well, we're going to wrap for today. So grateful that you could come and visit us on Overfilled the podcast.
Well, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, you can find us on
my
YouTube.
Favorite people.
The best. This just a great opportunity to spend a half hour with you today. You can find us on Overfilled the podcast on YouTube, Overfilled _ the podcast on Instagram, Overfilled the podcast on Facebook. And again, just great to spend another episode with you guys, and we look forward to next week. And I really like the guest visit style, so we'll have to have more people join us. The more the merrier, really. So,
it was fun on this side too. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
I'll see y'all in person next week. See ya.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Watch for us from ICSC. Have a good one.
Have a great meeting.
Bye.